y'all, this is just a short little video over a couple of things I just wanted to remind y'all of since I'm not going to be here tomorrow to review with you. So just a couple of things that I know some people struggle with and that I would want to review with you before the test. But since I won't be here, I just kind of want to do it now. It's not like I'm working through the whole test review, just a couple of pointers to remember for your test tomorrow. So I am just going to work through a couple of problems on the test review to kind of talk through a couple of things. So if you just watch this, it's not going to be very long. So number 2 on the test review said square root of 72. I just want to remind you that you always want to get the biggest perfect square. So I do not want to use 9 times 8 here. If I use 9 times 8 and I bring a 3 out from that 9, you have to keep checking that number underneath the radical. And I know a lot of you know that, but you just keep forgetting. That 8 is not simplified. All that means is you did not get the biggest perfect square from the beginning. Now the problem is, if you were to check this in the calculator, so that is another thing I'm going to talk about is checking in the calculator. So you should be doing this on every single problem. Okay, so if I type something in and it tells me the answer is 8, that is the answer I'm going to write down. Okay, if I type the square root of 16 in and it tells me it's 4, that's my answer. Okay, now you won't have any decimals on the test unless it asks you for a decimal. But y'all need to make sure that you are typing these in. So if I type in the square root of 72, and then I type in 3 square root of 8, you're going to see a problem. The problem is that these two things are equal, but 3 square root of 8 is not the answer I'm looking for. You've got to make sure you get the biggest perfect square. So if we go back to that question, let's say instead of 9 and 8, we broke this into 36 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to bring a 6 out. Whoa, 6 out from that 36, and that leaves me with 6 square root of 2. So now if I check that, 6 square root of 2, you can see also that is the same, but that is the answer that we would want. Okay, so just make sure you're typing in the original, type in your answer, and make sure they match. You can do that with any of these radical problems. Type the original in, type in your answer, and make sure they match. Don't miss something silly, like number 5 here. If I type number 5 in, it tells me the answer is 12. So don't break this into 4 times 4. You can do that, but you're going to have to realize that the answer to this whole thing is 12. There's not even a radical in your answer. Okay, the only other thing, or maybe a couple things I wanted to talk about is if you look at one like number, and this is a review problem, number 26, when it says to find the quotient, here's what you cannot do here. You cannot divide, divide, divide. You cannot do that because there's a binomial in the denominator. So what you have to do is you have to factor the top. Okay, what it's going to show you on the video, it's going to show you, whoever did the video, they're going to be doing a shortcut there. I'm going to go ahead and do this the long way, make sure y'all know how to factor. Okay, so first step is GCF. There is no GCF. So next thing I'm going to do is A times C. So I need 2 factors that multiply to be negative 24 and add to be negative 5. Okay, that's negative 8 and 3. Okay, so now I'm going to break that middle term. So I have k squared minus 8k plus 3k equals, or not equals, minus 24. Now from here, I'm going to group. I don't know where that slide just went. I'm going to group. Okay, when I do that, this first group I can take out a k. If I do, that leaves me with k minus 8. The second group, I can take out a 3, and that leaves me with k minus 8. So our 2 factors here are k plus 3 and k minus 8. Now remember, we were dividing, and we had to divide by k minus 8. Okay, one of these factors will be k minus 8 in this case. Like something has to cancel out. So those cancel out, and so my answer here is k plus 3. Okay, so make sure you know how to do that. Again, she talks about the shortcut in that problem. I wouldn't use the shortcut. I would go ahead and do it the way that you know how. Just make sure, again, that you're taking out a GCF. So if you look at number 33, you need to take a 4 out of this before you do anything. The one on the test is like that. So that would leave me with 25y squared minus 4. Now look at that binomial and ask yourself, is it a difference of squares? And it is. So my answer here, one's plus, one's minus, would be 5y plus 2, 5y minus 2, and the 4 that we took out from the beginning. So make sure that you get all of that. Again, the one on the test will be like that. You have to take a GCF out first. The only other thing that people are still missing, on one like 34, okay, if I divide both of these things by 4, I have x squared equals, what is 845? 45 divided by, what was it, 4 divided by 4 is 211.25. So 211.25. Now from here, I need to take the square root, so don't forget to do that. And so x equals whatever the square root of 211.25 is. Okay, so the only thing I wanted just to make sure you remembered here is that not only is it positive 14.5, but it's also negative 14.5. I kept reminding that to my classes today, and a lot of people were still missing both of those answers. If you want to do it in your calculator and graph it, you can, but you'd have to move the 845 over and get it equal to 0. Okay, only other thing is that there is a question on the test that asks you if certain numbers make a right triangle. Remember, with right triangles, we use Pythagorean theorem. So if I were to ask you, does 3, 4, 5 make a right triangle? You have got to plug this into Pythagorean theorem. And if it's true, then it works. So 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. So 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. And if that equals 25, then this is a right triangle. So 9 plus 16 is 25. That does equal 25. So that is a right triangle. Okay, so you'll see that tomorrow on the test. So just make sure you're plugging that into Pythagorean theorem. Okay, one more thing. Sorry, I just keep thinking of things that I'm telling my other classes. If you're going to square something in the calculator that has a radical, so let's say I wanted to square 2 square root of 3, and I want to square that, you have to put parentheses around that 2 square root of 3. If you don't, that will be wrong. You will get the wrong answer. Now you could write this out as 2 square root of 3 times 2 square root of 3. You can type it in your calculator like that if you want to, so you don't mess it up. But if you're squaring a radical, you have to put parentheses around that. Okay, so that was just a few helpful hints for the test tomorrow, and hope y'all do well.